Nocturnal Redditors. What are your favorite things about the night? It's so quiet and peaceful. It feels like during the day the world is so busy and chaotic. At night it's all zen. I can do whatever I want without anyone interrupting me. I wish I lived alone in the middle of nowhere so whatever ruckus I make wouldn't bother anyone. I have more energy at night than at daytime. I just love the serene feeling during the night. The gentle sounds of crickets are calming to the ears. Nobody else is awake. It's true privacy. The general lack of people. I work third shift. And unlike my daywalking cohorts, I can listen to a podcast and do paperwork in relative peace because there's a solid 3 hours in the middle of the night where I am left the hell alone. The quiet. The lack of people. The wildlife is more active. There are possums. Australian possums. Living in our roof. And at night they come out and sit on the veranda railings. I love leaving the curtains open so I can watch them play. They've all got names. They've got their own personalities and quirks. There's a family of wombats living in a burrow under the garden shed. And a couple of wallabies that visit at night. We also get visits from flying foxes, owls, tawny frogmouths. What are some luxury items which you never knew existed? Which only the mega-rich can afford. That blows your mind and you wouldn't mind having, or is just an example of how people have too much money and not enough sense? As I'm a plumber, I recent installed a smart shower which I've known about. But this one had 2 rainfall heads, 8 body sprays. The unit also has a sauna steamer built in and can connect to your phone. So when you're driving down your street you can pick the aroma you'd like and set the temp of your shower so when you walk in it's just ready for you. The wealthy version of a public storage unit. An exceptionally wealthy family I know refers to a wing of the local art museum as their public storage unit. They funded the wing to store their huge collection of classic and modern art since it was more practical than private storage. It included a climate-controlled, 24/7 secure location managed by professionals. Plus, the curators would handle the swapping out of pieces from the museum and the home when they needed a different style or era to fit the mood of the next dinner or event at the house. Which was funny because sometimes the swaps would introduce a dozen or so pieces not before displayed at the museum, essentially creating a new exhibit that the museum would package and promote. Behind the fuss, the family just wanted to create the right ambiance for Grandma's 80th birthday party. I watched a documentary once on food rich people eat, and there was a place that provided caviar that came from, get this, sturgeons that get played live jazz music. Recorded jazz music wasn't good enough. It had to be performed live by a pianist. Live jazz. For fish. I used to work for an engineering firm and we did the engineering. HVAC. Plumbing. Electrical. Fire protection. For high-end residential in NYC. There was a client who owned a floor in an apartment building on Central Park West. The people below him moved out, so he bought that floor to host parties. He had a 6 inches thick sound and vibration dampening system installed on that level so he wouldn't bother the people that lived below. The building was old and the existing elevator would not stop the additional 6 inches higher on that floor only. So he installed a new elevator in the building. He also paid for French plasterers to come and live in NYC while they do the ornate plaster crown molding in the apartment. Rotating garage floor. Owner hated idea of backing out of a garage. The floor would rotate 180 degrees when he's ready to drive out. A guy in my town bought 4 plots of construction places for houses across the street and turned them into garden. Solely so his view wouldn't be deteriorated. The plots were $500K each. Women of Reddit. What was your worst run-in with a creep? There was a creepy hunched old man who used to come into a pub I worked at. He used to say and do slightly weird things, and then one day he called one of the glass collectors fat. She was 16 at the time. And to apologize he went to fist bump her. Then grabbed her hand and put her fingers in his mouth. I was walking my dog and made the mistake of not rushing home once it got dark. A man in a baseball cap and oversized jacket blocked my path to comment how pretty my dog was and how I must take good care of him. I smiled tightly and thanked him, told him to have a good day and nodded and went to go around him. So he naturally grabbed my arm and said, "Yeah, I bet you take real good care of anything you have. You married?" I lied and said yes. He let me go but followed me home. I wound up calling my boyfriend to come pick me up. So, last year I got a flat tire on a semi-busy road right when a snowstorm started. Since I had AAA, I figured I would use one of my roadside assistants to have them replace the tire with a spare that I had. And I wouldn't have to go outside since I forgot gloves. While I was waiting, a mid-40s, early 50s man came up to my window and asked if I needed help. Thinking that he was just a good Samaritan at the time, I thanked him but told him, no, I was just waiting for AAA. Now, if he left here, I would have a nice story about a guy willing to help me with a car problem. Instead, he gets downright pushy. He lives nearby. I can just take my car there and change it in his garage. Why don't I just stay in his house until AAA comes? I kept telling him no until he starts yelling. And I rolled up the window and he starts pounding on it. Eventually he left when the AAA guy came. But I still took a very long and circuitous route home. A few years ago I lived in a tiny condo right next to a few trails in San Diego. I was on a pretty strict running and hiking routine. One night it got dark faster than expected. A man who appeared to be about 6 feet 3 inches and 200 pounds approached me as I was nearing the end of my hike. He told me, with a smirk on his face, to be careful as there are many things that could hurt me when the sun goes down. The next day as I'm exiting my back gate he's standing there as if he's waiting for me. He introduced himself and admitted he's been watching me for a while. I decided to pretend like I was grabbing something from my car and went back into my house. For the next few days I see this guy circling my condo, looking in if the curtains are open. He was always walking around day and night. I checked the Megan's Law website and surprise, there he was. Multiple charges including rape by force or fear and child pornography. I decided to contact his parole officer and he immediately returned my call, stated he could tell I fit his M.O. and to use extreme caution. He said he would do what he could to get him out of the neighborhood. After that call I thankfully never saw him again. I was 8 years old and waiting for the bus in the morning to go to my mom's work. A guy sat next to me at the bus stop and his bus pass was the wrong color. Expired. He told me he loved me and as scary as it is. I said thank you. When the bus finally came, I got on first and the bus driver lady immediately shut the door behind me. She said the man knelt down to try and look up my shorts and that he wouldn't be taking the bus with us. I told my mom and after work we went and bought me my first pepper spray. As a fucking 8-year-old, I smiled at a guy the first passed in the park. As I do everyone I pass. He immediately turned around and followed me. But not before he began masturbating with his entire dick and balls out of his shorts. What show had the perfect ending? Does Chernobyl count despite only being a mini-series? Over the Garden Wall. The ending was perfect because Wirt comes to the realization, along with Beatrice, that what they both did was wrong. and they actively work to fix their mistakes. And it ends in a climatic fight where Wirt doesn't physically fight the beast, instead rejecting the beast and finding his own path. And that path led him and his brother home. Blackadder goes forth. Ed and Eddie. 6 Feet Under. Futurama. So good it had 3 perfect endings.
Subscribe, my brothers.